What's going on, everybody? Welcome. Happy Monday. Uh, I do apologize ahead of time. You might be hearing a little bit more ambient noise than usual in this particular episode. I have the door open because it's just finally we're getting some nice weather, and I'm just trying to air the house out, get a little bit of fresh air, get a little bit of nice breeze going, and that's why you, at the moment, won't be joined by Lilu, Lilu the Loud. Lilu Sunbeam is what we should have named her because right now she found a sunbeam on the porch, and that's where she decided to lay. So you're not gonna be hearing as much ambient noise as usual from her, but she loves it. Uh, I wonder if that's like a pity thing because it seems like any pit or pit mix that I know usually seems to love just laying into a sunbeam, just like a cat, you know. And in a lot of ways, she is totally like a cat. You know, it seems like every dog I've ever owned is like a cat, and every cat I've ever owned is like a dog. It is what it is. And yeah, I'm already doing the uhs. I swear, I should just start snapping my wrist every time that I do an until I can get rid of that. Ah, there was another one. Son of a bee. Negative reinforcement therapy. I don't know if that's ever been proven to work, but you know what? I'm going to try it. Let's just see how many wrist snaps I can get from this episode alone. And I'm probably going to miss a whole bunch of uhs, so go ahead and let me know in the comments just how many I forgot about or didn't even notice that I did. So, yes, how's it going? It's another day in paradise. Just, there you go. You know, living life, trying to adjust, still working out all the kinks in the new job. Just like any time that you start a new venture, you you feel like you're getting adjusted and that you know what's going on and everything's going great, and then all of a sudden you get thrown another curveball, or somebody comes up behind you afterwards and says, "Hey, you actually did all of that completely wrong." You're like, "Ah, son of a b! I guess I gotta continue learning." So it's nice though because it's first time in a while. I mean, as you probably know if you've been listening to this, 10 years that I did a career change. So uh, it's nice to know that I still am a little bit sharp. I know it doesn't seem like it from these casts because I go and and I hesitate a lot. None of this is scripted, so this is all genuine. This is just you listening to my boring voice, not knowing what I'm going to talk about next. It's kind of fun. It's a little scary, but it's also a little exciting at the same time. But yeah, trying to learn new things and stuff on the new job. It's been interesting because I always would put on resumes that I'm a fast learner when I didn't feel that that was the case at all. And in this particular new job, I feel like that is absolutely the case. I've been picking up a lot of stuff pretty quickly, a lot faster, I think, than the person that I replaced. Not to disparage them, they actually helped out a lot. Uh, whoever the person that was before me was very organized. What I do involves a lot of organization, and I've never been an organized guy. And this person left detailed notes on how to do procedures and stuff. Made sure to get a filing system in place before I got there, which has helped out immensely. So I am eternally grateful to her. But despite that not being my typical MO, being a fastidious and organized person, fastidious, that should be the word of the day. But I feel like I'm picking it up pretty quick, and that's pretty awesome because it's like one of those things. If you don't use it, you lose it, and it's been forever since I've been in school, and you just feel like when the days go by faster, and you kind of get set in your ways. So when it comes to, for instance, music and stuff, you just start wondering, am I quickly turning into an old man? All the older people watching this are like, "Shut up! You look so friggin' young." Well, yeah, but it doesn't mean you don't still feel, the aches and pains starting up. Doesn't mean you don't still feel your brain getting a little fuzzy sometimes compared to how it feels like it used to be sharp as a tack. So it's been nice kind of challenging myself and finding that, hey, I can still actually step up when the situation calls for it. Kind of like with this, I mean, it might not be the best, most polished, most produced thing that you'll ever watch, but I'm sticking with my commitment of fulfilling my promise and I say it in a lot of episodes. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to sustain this. I can see why people only do it once a week, and they have segments. I want to start doing segments. That's something that I definitely want to start doing, at least on this part, the blog part. I would definitely want to start doing little little things like, I don't know. I haven't thought about it yet. Let's try and put that on a back burner while I do this episode, and maybe by the end I'll think of, hey, that's something I can do from week to week, a little game or what have you. But so yeah, how was your weekend? Hopefully it was good. I don't know that I have a whole bunch to update you on because for the most part, now that I have a new job and I actually have the weekends off, most of the weekend has been put towards trying to get a lot of house stuff done that has been horribly overlooked. And then also, meal prepping for the rest of the week and trying to find a little bit of time in between to actually relax, which has not been easy because there's been a lot of stuff going on where now that both of us are actually available for the weekend, it is what it is. There never seems to be enough time in the day, time in the week, time in your life. So, prioritize, compartmentalize, don't demonetize. I don't know. I'm being ridiculous. So, I don't know. I guess one of the most recent things that's been going on is, I don't know when you're watching this if you're even interested in that kind of thing, but lately the WandaVision just wrapped up, and then Falcon and the Winter Soldier has just started. And whether you're a fan of Marvel or not, whether you're even a fan of Disney or not, I mean, maybe you're upset like I am that they're pretty much becoming a monopoly where that's not really allowed, and pretty much anything other than it seems like entertainment. It seems like if you live in a certain area, either Comcast or DirecTV just are the only game in town. And it's interesting because I thought that there was laws against that, but it is what it is. I'm not a huge fan of supporting something so powerful, but at the same time, they have some good content. Gosh darn it. I thoroughly enjoyed WandaVision. I'm one of the rare few that actually loved the first few episodes, where if you haven't seen it, I'm not going to spoil it, but basically, the first few episodes are very much Wanda and Vision in what seems like different eras of television. And it takes a couple episodes in before you actually realize what the heck is really going on. Some people would have preferred for that to be sooner because they felt that the first couple episodes were hard to get through. I absolutely loved it. I would not have minded it being more of a slow burn and having the final episode of season one be the big reveal of what's actually happening, and then season two getting into it a little bit. But they didn't do it that way. It looks like it's going to be a one-off, but that's fine. Like I said, thoroughly enjoyed it, and now they have Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which I saw the first episode and I enjoyed that as well. But the thing that I really like about it, both of those shows, is they're doing something that a lot of platforms haven't done in a long time, which is they're releasing it each week. And that's something where by the point that people are watching this, I'm probably going to be of the older generation. It's weird to think of, but I grew up on shows coming out once a week, and then you can only see them again if they happen to have reruns, or you know, if you manage to tape it. DVRs were not a thing. Collection sets were not a thing. So you had to watch the episode, digest the episode, talk about the episode, look forward to the next episode instead of just binge watching an entire season, series, what have you. And that made WandaVision a lot of fun, especially because me and my girl could actually sit down, watch it, talk about it, speculate, watch other podcasts that would also then speculate. Kevin Smith's Fat Man on Batman is one that was following each episode religiously, and I've always been a huge fan of Kevin Smith, but that was a really fun one where her and I had been talking about it, and we had to wait a few days, and then we get to listen to them talk about it, and them and the fans would have brand new things that we hadn't even thought about or had caught. So it looks like Falcon and the Winter Soldier is going to be the same, and some people might be a little frustrated by that, but I love it. I feel like it brings back an element to watching TV that wasn't previously there before, especially with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Oh my God, can you know believe the production value just from that opening fight alone, where it's going to be like, yeah, we have the budget that most TV shows will never be able to dream of having. That would have been that opening shot of Falcon and the Winter Soldier would have been the budget of an entire season for most shows. And they're saying, no, no, we have no problems throwing all of our money at it to give you a spectacle, which I loved and I also didn't love. I don't mean to get into it. If this isn't something you're interested in, I'll try and be brief about it and then maybe move on to other topics. But it's what's on my mind, and this is what you're gonna get is basically whatever's on my mind. It's gonna be free association, but I actually am not a huge fan of Falcon in this Marvel Cinematic Universe. I love it because he's a great hero and has some fun visuals that are great to watch. It's nice to always see black superhero because I know that in the past they were a little underrepresented. But I don't like how in danger Sam always is when it comes to the fights. He's pretty much unprotected except what I assume the harness is also a bulletproof vest. The wings are titanium or some kind of alloy that is bulletproof, but other than that, he's completely exposed, and just any random stray bullet during these fights are gonna take him out. And so it takes me out of it, which is funny to say in a superhero movie where you know they're gonna be okay, but with his especially, it's like, I mean, Tony Stark exists in this universe, so twofold. So Tony Stark exists in this universe, so you couldn't give Falcon more protection, and also it's nice, and it also isn't nice at the same time. So spoilers. This isn't really a big spoiler, but in this, Sam has an issue getting a loan, and it does reek of Marvel in the fact that yeah, Peter Parker always had to freelance photograph just in order to make ends meet when he was Spider-Man, because just because you're a superhero doesn't mean that you miraculously get all the money in the world, unless you're like an anti-hero, kind of like Blade was, where he would just rob the people that he would either harass or kill. So for the most part, being a superhero is an unfunded job, and so this is a universe that Tony Stark exists. And not only can't he get a suit for Falcon, he can do it for Spidey, but he can't do it for Falcon. But also, when he left, there was no superhero fund. Kind of like how there's the, oh God, I'm gonna blank on it now. The award that they do for Nobel Peace Prize. Yeah, so there's no like superhero Nobel Peace Prize for superheroes. And it's so funny though. I do take it back where it's like I love it and I both don't love it because it reeks of Marvel, but also in the real world, yeah, if you get blipped out of existence for 5 years and then you suddenly went to get a loan, unfortunately, the way insurance companies work is, well, you haven't worked in 5 years. Well, yeah, I didn't exist for 5 years. Well, we can't give a loan for somebody who hasn't worked in 5 years. Okay, well, haven't you updated that to take care of it? Well, as you might know from previous rants in my podcast, no, oftentimes new unprecedented things, it takes a long time for policies and stuff to catch up to it, and partially because they don't want to. I mean, why would a loan company adjust their policy to give out loans if it benefits them, because there's a good chance that, well, now you're 5 years out of the loop, so the people that are out of the loop are not likely going to be as good paying back the loan as, say, somebody that was not out of the loop for 5 years. So it's the same thing with, probably, if you're already aware, a business that you work for doesn't necessarily have to tell you if somebody in that said business got COVID, because technically there hasn't been COVID before, so there's no actual law against it. The CDC strongly recommends it, but there's no law against it. So They can keep it as hush hush as they want to, which is, up to the company. Don't think it's a good move business wise, especially if it leaks out that happened. But that's where we are. So that part of the episode absolutely rang true. And again, I'm trying to wrap up, but you know, I I am and I'm not. You know what? Because I really am a cinephile, I guess is the word, where I absolutely love TV and movies. Always have, always will. I'm surprised that you don't get more of me just randomly quoting some old, obscure 80s movies than come up in conversation. It's something that I used to do all the time in conversation. That used to be actually my main contribution to said conversation. But now I figured that it would just come out naturally in my podcast, but it hasn't yet, and it's been very interesting. Where I haven't just randomly, I don't know. I can't even think of an example right now. That's how bad it is. It's weird. So I'm gonna try and get better at that, because whether you get the reference or not, it's at least gonna change up the dialogue a little bit. And if you do catch it, then hey, it's gonna be a little spark of joy for you, where it's just like, oh my god, I haven't thought about that movie in forever. You know what? I'm not doing anything tonight. I should go just pop that on for some good background stuff. Speaking of, this is the time that I normally would be doing like just catch up stuff. Fold some laundry that is spilling over in the clean clothes bag. Getting some dishes done in the sink. So I'm telling you, the laundry has been so backed up just from not being able to really have much time during the week, and then during the weekends trying to actually spend time, with my girls, that I have been putting some of that kind of stuff off to the side. That, well, especially when I was a bachelor, I mean, I used to just take the clean laundry from the dryer, you know. So it's an easy thing to fall back into if you're not paying attention. So I have such a pile of laundry that I was briefly going back and forth in my head about me folding laundry this episode, because I have at least an hour's worth of laundry. I could have easily done laundry while talking to you for an hour, and I swear to God, if next week I still have not caught up with it, that is a promise. That is what I'm going to do. I could care less if you love it or if you hate it, but I will absolutely be folding stuff with you as I talk to you, and you're either just gonna have to deal with it, or who knows, you might even enjoy it. I'm almost regretting not doing it now, because I feel like that would have definitely been something to set that episode apart. It could have been the infamous laundry episode. Who knows? But are you keeping track? Because I'm not. That's been quite a few flicks of the wrist as it is. I don't know if it's helping me at all or not, but it is going to be kind of a fun little Easter egg where you can be like, he flicked his wrist again, or oh, he missed that. That one doesn't count. I'm talking about the word not actually saying it by accident. So, what are you gonna do? It's I'm gonna count that one, even though I was about to say it's a crazy time in my life. But so technically, it was the letter A. But since I hesitated, that turned the A into a UH. Does that make sense? It made sense in my head. I don't know if that made any sense coming out to you, but that's basically where I was at. Coming out to ya. Yeah, you. So, I guess I want to take a little time to talk about the fact that I really need a gimmick. I really need something. I hope that I can come up with the idea on my own, but if somebody else comes up with it and I think it's a great idea, I will give them a shout out. It'll feel a little cheaper, but it'll definitely be appreciated, because I have noticed, and I should address it, that towards the end of my hour-long rants, it's obvious that I'm running out of stuff to say. I thought that I would be much better at this, and I was the first couple episodes, because I was just so freaking excited that I had this to start, and it was new and it was exciting, and I know that I have a lot of noise in my head, and I know that I could go on forever, but I see myself very quickly petering off after the first 5 minutes of the show, getting into the ums and the ahs, and really stretching out my sentences and pressing for time while I furiously try and think of the next thing that I might possibly be able to talk to you about, because I feel like I've already said all of it. And that's an interesting thing. All right, so maybe there is something I can talk about there. So I did read something, I believe it was on Reddit, where if something interesting happens to you during the day, you should try to make sure to have your significant other be the first one that you tell it to. The reason is so if you had something interesting or exciting happen to you at some point, and you already told a coworker, and you already texted your best friend, and example. So then by the time that you get home and your SO gets home, and you tell them, well, you don't have that initial excitement of telling them. You've already kind of gotten over it. So now you're just recapping to them. Oh yeah, hey, so this exciting thing happened to me. I know, right? That's the energy that you bring. And honestly, if it's somebody that you're going to be spending a lot of your time with, it's so hard when you spend all of your time with somebody that you can keep you can keep things exciting when it comes to telling them about how things went in a given day. Like, you always see the old retired couple on the porch sitting next to each other, not talking to each other, because what are they going to talk about? They've talked about it all already. They were there. Like, they've already told them all of their life before they met. They were there for the rest of their life before they met. Anything in between where they didn't happen to be in the room, they've already been caught up on. So what the heck are you going to talk about? So save some of that stuff. It's good advice. It's not my advice. I wish it was, but I'm going to pass it along to you. And now, as far as you're concerned, it is my advice. So you're welcome. But tell them first. Save some stuff for the end of the day. Where, how was your day? I don't want to get sexist, but it does seem like women over men enjoy regaling practically every detail about what happened to them. And with guys, they're just built different. It seems like. And how was work? It was good, not bad. If something extreme happened, I'll tell you about that one. But it's gonna be the abridged version of it. It's gonna be the cliff notes of said event. It's not gonna be a play-by-play. It's going to be this is what happened and this is what the outcome was. They're they're usually not going to do play by play dialogue, what was said, what was not said, unless it's them just summing up what was said. So it ends up being a pretty big thing where, at least in my case, if she asks you, so how was work? Obviously, she would like an overall. She would enjoy knowing overall. I It wasn't stressful. It wasn't soul crushing. It wasn't bad. It was good. Now, she would like you probably to go into a little bit more detail. In what way was it good? Especially because I've been proud of myself that in a lot of ways I've been crushing it in this new job where, oh, so you told me once, I got it. I haven't done it in a week, so I kind of forgot. Remind me. Oh, now I got it again, and now I haven't had to ask again since. Stuff like that I've actually been pretty proud of, especially when it's something that's so detail oriented, and I'm not that detail oriented. Now, that's an interesting thing. So, it's funny how much my job does not bleed into the rest of my life. Generally. Generally. So, for instance, when I was in the Army, they had you make your bed every morning, keep all of your clothes organized and rolled and folded and all that stuff. And they would have you never have a beard. And what's funny is that some people might not realize that the not having a beard thing is, yes, they do want to have people look as similar to each other as possible because we're all a big unit, and so they're trying to take away a little bit of the individuality. But it's also, you can't have anything here. Like, you might be able to have little of this bit of a mustache, but this is because if you're going to wear a gas mask, there needs to be a perfect seal. That's it. That's why you have to shave every day to have a perfect seal. Same thing with the short hair. Yes, it's to have everybody look the same and conform, but also if you had hair like I have right now, I mean, if there's barbed wire, if there's anything that you could even during one-on-one combat, this is a very very big vulnerability. So it just makes sense to not be able to have anything to grab in the heat of a battle. But so now that I'm out of the army, I very rarely make my bed. Typically, if there's company coming over. Otherwise, I'm like, I'm gonna mess it up again the next day, which a lot of people feel, and that isn't anything to be ashamed about. But it's just funny that that never really carried over. There was always the laundry situation where it's like you would fold it, wrap it. There's a couple of things that I have taken from that where I do. Maybe if I do a laundry video, I'll show you. But I'll do the shirts the way the army did it, where you would actually roll them rather than fold them. And besides that, though, like I said, I got very comfortable with just taking stuff out of the dryer. So I never had to go through that extra step of folding them and actually putting them in their designated place. I clearly have not kept to the regulations of hair length. So it's the same thing with this new job. I thought that, wow, I'm getting really good at getting files and stuff organized. Maybe when I get home, I might see everything in disarray and be like, "Oh my God, no! I gotta put this in its spot that it belongs to. I gotta put this over here," and that has not been the case at all. I think the only time that a job has bled into my life is the fact that I keep coming back to it, but I worked at a pet store for 10 years, so I started the first half of that not having an animal at all, and now I have at least three different types of animals. I got a fish tank. I have another tank that has an axolotl, and of course Lilu. So that might have happened organically anyway. I don't know, but and I definitely have done a bit of a deep dive into the world of animals, and that probably wouldn't have happened if it weren't for work. But beyond that, it isn't like I have a menagerie at home. I mean, we're literally talking about one dog and then two fish tanks, one which only has a single axolotl in it. The other one's just a teeny little, guppy tank. So I wouldn't say that I've gone crazy with animals. So even that, I guess, technically hasn't really bled into my life. So it's interesting just how much I do separate work from play. And this little venture that I'm doing right now, talking to you, it could be eventually, maybe, my work, which is weirding me out a little bit because I don't think that's ever going to happen. I don't know that I'm ever going to be able to get enough people involved. I mean, right now, I think I have, at the time that I'm watching this, maybe 5 followers. One of them might even be a bot. And you need at least 1,000 before you start getting paid by YouTube. So this is not exactly my retirement package, I guess you could say. But it'd be cool if it did, and I'd be happy. But I also don't know how much I would still enjoy it if it was also the source of income. There's always those people that say they learned to trade, they loved it, and now it's something that they only do as a hobby because it was making them lose the love of it because they were getting paid for it. And now there was the stress of, well, now me having food to eat and a roof over my head is very much tied in together with that said activity, thus sucking all of the fun out of it. And that would kind of suck having that be. That is what kind of ended up happening with dog training. I love the actual act itself, but once corporate gets involved, and it's important for the amount of class sales and all that stuff, it did suck all the fun out of it. So I hope that isn't the case with something like this. I hope that something like this will be fun, even more so because I'm getting paid for it, and then I can be like Bill Burr and just have an absolute just blast with the ad reads and just make them my own, and not sound like I'm just reading off of a script or a teleprompter. I take that back. He obviously sounds like he's reading off of a script, but he just completely makes it his own and makes it funny. Yep. There you go. This is not going to be the gimmick, but this is kind of an interesting one. This is going to be the wrist snap episode because I doubt I'm going to do this again. But I'm kind of trying to commit to the fact that I did say that at the beginning that I'm going to just snap my wrist anytime I say and I have been trying to be as good about that as possible. But I digress. So I don't know if I'm going to get anything back with taxes. There's another one. It hasn't been happening lately, so I doubt it. I'm probably going to break even at best, but I definitely do want to upgrade my setup because I have noticed that a couple of the episodes that I have recorded recently, the camera, when it adjusts, it makes a noise that it picks up, which is annoying. That should be an obvious feature to try and neglect. And it just makes me feel bad about the time when I was working at an electronics store and my dad asked me for a camera, and instead of just handing him over to one of the actual camera guys, I thought that I knew what I was talking about, and I ended up getting him one of the worst cameras ever. And it was one that anytime that the zoom adjusted during a video, you could just hear that. And I'm now noticing that that is the case with this one. So thankfully with these videos, I'm far enough away that I don't believe there's too much adjusting going on. But when I'm doing my tutorial casts and I'm sitting in front of the window, I notice a huge difference. The window light keeps on blinking different colors. I hear it going adjusting. So I can understand if you're used to watching, the people that can afford the highest end polished stuff that it might be a little distracting, and I do apologize. I would like to slowly upgrade my setup as it makes sense. As I get into it, and it's been a really long time that I've been doing it, it's like, well, okay, obviously this is not something I'm just going to give up. So maybe I should start making it a little bit more fine tuned, and also just waiting for stuff to maybe be on a decent sale, or do a little bit of take my time to do a little bit of research so that I actually am getting a decent product for my money. Just because it's something expensive does not mean it's something good. I just found that out. So where I work, there's a lot of noise going on. So you can wear earplugs when you're actually on the work floor, or you can wear, noise canceling headphones, or now in my case, headphone. I would just have them dangling so they would catch on everything. They finally caught on the corner of something, I don't even remember what, and it literally ripped one of the earpieces completely out. And it's amazing that this one still actually works, but it ripped it right out of that connecting thing. And when I mentioned to my boss, she said that she has a pair of wireless ones that are rechargeable that she got from Walmart, of all places, for a pretty decent price. And apparently, the battery life in these things is more than the expensive ones that the podcasters that I listen to have been pimping out. So again, I don't like to name company names if I can help it, especially if I'm not getting paid by them, but also because I don't want to throw them under the bus. What if they become a sponsor? Then I'm going to be like, hey, remember the one I was shitting on earlier? Yeah, well, this episode's brought to you by that company that I shat on. But yeah, it was a brand that she getting from Walmart of all friggin' places. I'll dump on Walmart. That's fine. Walmart I can shit on all day. But it just blew my mind that. Wait a minute. So the ones the podcasters are pimping out aren't actually the best ones. You'd think that they would be getting paid. Well, because they not only they get paid, but they usually get a free sample of the thing. So you'd assume that what they were getting was top notch and top quality. And turns out that, I hate to say it, but most of the stuff that the podcasts that I watch pimp out are overpriced, and or they have a monthly subscription that similar products don't have. It's just a one-time buy. So for instance, fitness watches. I see a lot of people pimping out a fitness watch that actually has a monthly subscription to it, and it's because they claim to have one or two extra features, but to be honest, those features are either something you could do yourself or might even be able to find with a cheaper one. Now I'm talking out of my butt. I'm just saying that I thought a fitness watch you'd have to have a monthly subscription to, and it actually turns out that's just that one that has that. Every other one you just buy it and wear it, and it tells you what's going on. So I guess it's fun listening to the ad reads from podcasts because A, I'm happy for them for getting money. B, some of them are actually humorous, like Bill Burr. And C, it's interesting to find out that such a thing exists in the first place. So, for instance, bidets. A lot of the podcasts that I listen to, they pimp out those bidets, which I knew bidets were a thing, but I didn't realize that you could actually get one attached to your already there toilet, and it's actually quite simple and not too obtrusive. And so once I found that out, I thought that was really cool. But then you do a little bit of research, and it's like, oh, well, I could get the same setup that you're offering for about half the price, and it doesn't seem like there's any extra bells and whistles necessarily that make yours better than the other one. So, finding out that, for instance, when I was looking for a new job, there's a website out there that is a good job hunting website, and there's also a very popular one that everybody's heard of. So I did both. And even though I didn't end up getting a job from the one that the podcast had told me about, it was still good to have two different websites that I was on, because quite often what I would find in one website I would not find from another website. So for all I know, it very easily could have been one way or the other. It could have been 50-50. I easily could have gotten it from the podcast sponsored recruiting website than the one that I just knew about organically. So it's just further proof that I'm just talking out of my butt. That I honestly could. You shouldn't listen to me for any advice, but this is just something that I personally have seen myself, that for the most part, the products pimped out by podcasters that you are a fan of aren't necessarily the best. Now, having said that, there are more that I haven't tried than I have tried. So, again, I could be talking out of my butt. If I ever get popular enough for somebody to send me something and I try it out, and then I just, eat crow the whole time on the podcast while I'm saying, hey, buy this, we're sponsored by this, and I tried it, I'm sorry, it actually is a far superior product. Again, none of this is ever fact checked or backed up by a single Google search, so it is what it is. What are you going to do? I am just trying to take it day by day, just like you guys, and this is something that makes me feel at least a little bit productive. So I'm going to keep doing it, even if it feels like an episode such as this where I'm like, God, honestly, besides going to work and trying to pump out these episodes and, trying to get a little bit of choring in and dinner ready and maybe watch an episode or two with my girl before we both pass out has been enough during the week. And then the weekends, oh, wouldn't you know it? Plenty of stuff to do then, too. So, what am I going to do? An hour podcast on clearing out the bottom floor so you can actually move around? I mean, especially especially because during those times of organization, I'm usually at my shortest temper, and I do apologize to my girl and anybody that's ever had to do that with me, but when you're trying to tag team a project like cleaning and organizing and trying to figure out where things go, I couldn't get more frustrated because I this is all on me. This is not on anybody else. This is all on me. But I always feel like, okay, well, where I want to put things is not where you want to put things, and we're gonna end up putting things where you want to put things. So why don't you just say where you want to put things? Well, you don't know yet. Well, how dare you? I didn't know yet either. And it's like the most unfair, stupidest thing, and it always gets my blood so riled up. I would prefer to be doing one area while somebody else does another area, but then that doesn't work out because now I'm looking for something and it's like, well, where did this go? Well, you weren't here to help me put it away, so you're either gonna have to wait for me to be able to answer you or find it myself or yada yada yada. So it's like a damned if you do, a damned if you don't. I hate that whole prospect. I mean that whole process, and that's why I like dishes and laundry and stuff that already has a pre-designated area to go to. So if I do the dishes, as long as I get them clean enough and dry enough and put in the correct spot, I did it correctly. If I fold the laundry, I know which drawers they belong to. But if we're trying to figure out where to put the friggin' fish tank or Bowflex, I mean, there's no right answer, there's no wrong answer, but there is also, in each person's opinion, a right and a wrong answer. Like I would actually prefer it over here. Well, I don't like it over here because that thing's hanging over that, and whenever I try and feed that, I smack my head on that thing, and it keeps on happening, and then I'll remember it, and I won't smack my head on it for a couple of days, but then I will again, and then you're gonna come home, and you're gonna wonder why I'm so pissed off, and it's like, because the freaking thing is hanging over the freaking thing, and I smack my head on it again, so just those little stupid freaking, those little minutia details. It's just, it's so funny that when it comes to trying to agree on the big stuff, like buying a home, that's one where you can actually sit down and like really kind of hash it out and feel like you both kind of came to an agreement. Whereas, do we really need to buy this organizer? Yes, that stuff needs to be organized, or it could just be getting thrown away. I mean, like those little friggin' things, and it's just funny because, when talking about them, it's never really an issue. It's when actually getting them done. I don't know why. It's like I just get my blood absolutely riled up. It's kind of like how whenever you do any kind of project, it just seems like, all right, so I need to, I don't know, fix the snowblower. Let's just say as an example, and so, all right, well, let's look at a few YouTube tutorials and just look at some forum websites. We'll figure out what actually the problem is, and then I can just go to the store, buy a part, replace it, and then call it good. And then it's one thing after a friggin' another. You end up doing like 8 trips, calling in somebody to help you out that you feel embarrassed even asking them for help, and it just ends up being this entire thing that instead of taking an afternoon, it has to get spread out over the course of a couple of weeks. And so I think that's what it is. So I'm a clean person. I'm not a fastidious person, but I also do get stressed out when there's so much junk around that you can't get from one place to the other easily. Because I'm not a graceful person. I mean, I'm sure if I had been a ballerina at one point, that I could easily dance around, stuff on the floor and get from one place to the other with ease. But instead, I'm usually gonna stub a toe, trip, fall on something, either accidentally break something with my foot or my butt, and it's so whenever you have to organize and clean an area, you first have to make it slightly more messy at first. You know what I'm saying? You have to get it all kind of spread out so that you can then condense it. And that's the point where I start to just lose it, where I need to like step outside real quick. Like when it's all spread out so much that it's just like, oh, you can't go out that door because that door's blocked now because there's stuff piled in front of it. You have to actually go up and around and go out that door just in order to be able to get outside to just woosah for a second. That's and I know that the end result's going to be so great. Like right now downstairs, you can actually get to and from the washer and dryer with plenty of room to get past, and that wasn't the case before. And it's great and it's nice, and I'm glad that it happened. But to get to that point, it just really kind of gets to me. So I know that's something I have to work on. I will work on it, but up until then, it's just something that I need to know is there and just know that it's coming and address it when it comes. But that is one thing that just bugs the crap out of me, is when it comes time to do a big kind of cleanup project like that. And I don't know. It's so funny because I'm on so two sides of the fence about it. Like, I'm sure that you might be like me, where you don't want to become like a hoarder and just keep on collecting stuff that you're never going to use or never even going to see, or you're going to put away into a dusty corner, and all it's going to do is become a new house for friggin' mice that you're trying to get rid of. It, but then at the same time, when you finally have that moment, that epiphany of, all right, I haven't used this in 5 years. Screw it. I'm throwing it out. I'm donating it. I'm giving it to charity. Whatever you're going to do to get it out of the friggin' house. You finally do it, and then next week, you need it. And it's like it has to happen every single time you try and get rid of something. You get rid of something, and it has to be within a week, a month, soon enough for it to hurt. Soon enough for it to actually just get you right there. Because it's always going to be a short enough time where it's like, I just got rid of the thing. Like, not only did I just get rid of the thing, like if you live in an area that has the trash bin, not only did I just put it in the bin, but I realized I needed to use it an hour after the garbage guy picked it up. I could have literally picked it up out of the trash, cleaned it off, and been able to use that, and now it is gone forever, and now I have to go out and buy a new one. Are you freaking kidding me? So it's so hard not to become a hoarder, and it's so because of that very thing. It just seems like a Murphy's Law of the world, where that is exactly what's going to happen. Is you're going to need that thing. So to try to avoid being a person that just has stuff kind of stockpile up on them is kind of difficult. I could never be the kind of person, that they would have on a TV show, because you literally have to clear pathways through the house in order to get from room to room. I could never get that bad, but I can see the slippery slope that it would take to become that person. Like if you had some past trauma, and then that was something that was comforting, is to not get rid of something. I can see that happening. Thankfully I would never be the person that was keeping garbage and that kind of stuff. Um, I have been guilty of keeping old magazines and stuff a lot longer past what makes sense to have them. I was a huge gamer in the past, so I used to have a uncomfortable amount of Game Informer magazines just sitting around in boxes and stuff. And I finally was able to get rid of those, which, and then you start thinking, well, yeah, okay, I'm glad I got rid of them. I wasn't going to reread them. And then, well, wasn't I, though? Like 10 years later, wouldn't it have been fun to just keep a couple of episodes so I could look back in nostalgia and be like, oh, remember when that game had first came out and it got a 10 rating, and it was one of my favorites for months, and you know what? I think I might still have that somewhere. Maybe I should go play that. Like, I get it. I get it. I get where people are coming from. I get the draw, the appeal, but it's one thing that I didn't realize that I was fighting so hard with, where it's like, okay, not only do I have to fight getting to that point, but also when it does come time to reorganize and do all that stuff, to just not throw a hissy fit about it. Why is it so tough? I don't know. But it has been nice, slowly getting better about not only having a cleaner home, but also getting a little bit more handy about fixing stuff up. It's just weird. I've always wanted to be a handy person, and especially in today's age where you have YouTube videos and all this stuff. I mean, heck, technically I'm kind of one of those where it's like, well, I always wanted a hamster, but I never really knew everything involved in it. Well, now you can look at one of my videos, amongst other things, to see what's involved in being a hamster pet parent. So the same thing with me being like, well, this friggin' thing needs repairing in the house, or this friggin' thing fell off the car, and, I'm living paycheck to paycheck, so I don't really particularly want to have to pay somebody to do it. What if I just buy the part and do it myself? God bless the people that do those videos, and I guess that's one of the reasons why I wanted to start this thing, is I wanted to be one of those people that is helping put some useful info out in the world. This isn't useful. I mean, this is the blog. This is me just trying to get stuff off my chest, which is why it's funny that I'm so fastidious. There it is again. That's the word of the day. Fastidious about putting out a me video a week when, if I don't have something to get off my chest, then why am I so gung-ho about always having these ones come out? I mean, if people are subscribing just for the content, then the most important thing is that I put out the random animal and dog videos. I know the random animal video is never really going to be the revenue for the channel. More likely than not, it's going to be people that are more interested in hearing what's going on with my life, or if I start actually getting some fun segments on this part of the podcast, then you actually can tune in for the next episode of Yay or Nay. I don't know. I'm really trying to think of a segment for future episodes, but and the dog one's going to be very consistent, full of chock full goodness. I mean, if you didn't catch Friday's episode, definitely check it out. I'm sure it was a good one. I don't know when I'm going to be airing this particular episode, if at all. I feel like it's almost been a bit of a shit show, but that's just my opinion. That's actually another reason why I'm doing this, is that it's been interesting trying to just get a little less self-conscious about this. I mean, when I started, at some point, I'm going to do a compilation video of all of the times where I started it, and I was like, "Hey, everybody!" No, and it's just kind of hilarious to watch where just because I stumbled and hummed and hawed like for a second, I was just like, "Nope, no, I'm only 5 seconds in. I'm going to start that entirely over again." I have entire episodes where either due to the camera effing up or just me realizing that 3/4 of the way in, Lulu was making a lot of noise in the background. I didn't want to address it, so I just started throwing random stuff near her, not at her, near her. Like, so I threw a pen to make sure that it, hit the floor and maybe distracted her from becoming, like really distracting in my video. And then I realized that she's only getting noisier, and so I have to address it. And when I addressed it, I realized, oh, now everybody's gonna know what me flinging things out the side was, and people are probably going to assume that I was literally trying to throw stuff at her to get her to shut up, and that was not the case at all. It was literally trying to be a distraction thing, but I didn't like the tone of it. I didn't even think it was a dog episode. It was just I didn't like the tone of it, where like I could easily see people misinterpreting what was going on. So I decided not to air it at all, and that was a good half hour out of my life that never ended up going on. So I might do like some kind of compilation video like that, where I put together all the embarrassing moments where I'm just like, or what did I just do? I just tried to say 3 words at the same time. So I think that might be fun at some point. Or it might just be, dude, you're already hard enough to struggle through with the final episode that you did feel comfortable with. I don't know. My point is that I find that at the very least, it's not something that you can see directly, but a little behind the scenes for you. I have been doing a lot less false starts with my episodes. So I do a lot less 5 second, 5 minute, 15 minute start over again episodes. Even though according to you it probably looks like to you that every single one of these is a first take. And it's embarrassing to say that that is not the case at all. In fact, far from it. From the first handful of episodes, oh my god, I retook and retook it. I still never thought to write down something and maybe have a bit of a script to go with, but I still was very much like, didn't like how that went, stopping it right now and starting over again, to the point where I'm sure that without... I struggle rewatching my own videos, but I'm sure that if I watched it with a really keen eye, I could tell roughly what take this was, because I start the energy with such a low, like, "Hi, everybody. I'm happy to be here. Here's the episode. I'm excited. It's going to be a great one." And, like, you can just see it in my face and voice if you know me, that I have done take number 10, and I am just done with this topic entirely. And this is, like, the 50th time that I have run it through in my head, and at least the 5th time that I've actually run it through on the video. So, for instance, this is maybe unprecedented, that I think that it might be my first and only one where this is take number 1, which is pretty cool, especially because this is one I was going into being really nervous about not knowing what the heck I was going to talk about. In fact, when I was outside just before I came in, I was just like, I mean, honestly, what am I going to do? Just like any other podcast, just talk about WandaVision? And then I was like, well, maybe briefly. I mean, I do have a unique kind of take on it. Like, I don't think that many people, like I said, like the first couple episodes, it was a struggle to get through, and then it picked up from there. Whereas I was like, I would have been fine with that alone for the whole season at least. I might have been like, come on, all right, let's get to the point, if it had gotten a little bit into season two. But hey, anyway. Um, oh, and here I was doing pretty good for a spell. I would be interested if somebody, oh my god, you know how on Reddit they did the math? I'd be really interested to see if somebody would be willing to actually do the math on how long the longest period of time was for, like, if they just did a whole breakdown spreadsheet of the ums. Like, longest period of time without saying how many times total, how many times total that I missed, how many times total that I caught, and how many that are questionable. Because, for instance, the that I did, that was like, well, I'm going to count it just because I hesitated after saying but technically that was an A, not a UH. But anyway, I think that is going to be it for this week for the podcast. Again, I hope you had a great weekend. I hope you have a good week. I hope you have a great next weekend before you see me again on Monday. If you're interested in any of the pet videos, please give them a watch. I completely forgot a non-sponsor today. You know what? NHCoffee.com. Let's just do something at the very end. They are one that I'm actually a little bit nervous about talking about because I have not actually asked their permission. Pretty much everybody else that I do a non-sponsor for, I've asked their permission. But NHCoffee.com, I feel like there's no such thing as bad publicity. Hopefully I don't get canceled, and they get one extra person to buy their stuff. But was not a coffee drinker uh, up until a few years ago. Not a regular coffee drinker. Here's the most experience I've had with coffee up until a couple years ago. I would be in my 20s. I would get drunk. I would wake up. If it was one of those kind of parties, then a handful of us would then go to a diner the next morning. And that's when I would have my cup of coffee with a glass of water and with a glass of milk at the meal. Trying to get hydrated again, and trying to get woken up and trying to, just, So I would, that's when I would usually get a cup of coffee, and I would just pour cream and sugar and all that stuff into it. And now, cut to years later, and I have minimum 2 cups in the morning, and black as the night. And it's funny because I usually don't become much of a connoisseur of anything, but in this case, it's been really interesting seeing just how high quality of a taste I can get from a coffee without really breaking the bank. And for a spell there, I was all about the natural flavors. I didn't care for the artificial too much, but then I went to a farmer's market, and they were selling a bag of pistachio coffee. Pistachio, interesting. I've always been a fan of pistachio ice cream. Pistachio nuts are delicious and way too expensive, but there you have it. So we got some, and you could smell it through the bag before you even broke the seal. And it's hands down still one of my favorite flavors. But they have, like, name a food. All right, they have blueberry cobbler coffee. They have French toast coffee and maple syrup coffee. And yes, I have combined the maple syrup coffee and the French toast coffee together. So they're awesome. That technically NHCoffee.com is not the name of their company, but that's what is plastered across the front of the bag, and it is so easy to remember. Kudos for them for snatching that up. They're based out in New Hampshire. They're local. They are a small little outfit, but I think one of my favorite times coffee related was when I went there to pick up a bag, and I started getting into it, talking to them about how I discovered them, how I absolutely love the pistachio. They told me about their process where they once once a month, I believe, they get together with the new flavors and they do a taste testing, and they, as a whole, decide uh, which is the winner for that month. And so, literally, pistachio had been their newest flavor. I got it right when they first came out with it, so they were in agreement with me. It was a great one, and I learned so much interesting stuff from them. Like, for instance, uh, it's getting more as we get closer to the end. So the difference in taste between a French press and say a regular one with a coffee filter, well, it's because when you use a paper filter, it catches some of the oils, so you actually get a far different flavor than if you do a French press, where it's just literally nothing is going to catch something as thin as the oil. So it was just stuff like that that was fascinating for me. There's a big difference between hot brew and cold brew. Cold brew, you have less chance of bitterness. I mean, the list goes on, but it was obvious through talking to them that they had as much of a passion about coffee as I had developed over the scant few years that I had started drinking coffee. So it was a blast talking to them. They're obviously lovers of their craft. They do an amazing job. The best tasting stuff that I've had so far in my short little time doing it. So I can't stress it enough. nhcoffee.com. I I guess I'm going to end on that because I didn't even realize. Oh, I didn't even think of my non-sponsor of the week, and so they don't pay me a dime. So I do apologize if this ever comes back to bite them in the butt. But for right now, I just want to give them a shout out because I think that if you're interested in trying something new, I mean, you go online, you can get whatever size bag you want. Oftentimes, you can have either caffeinated or decaffeinated. But here's my favorite thing: you can decide the grind that you want. So I have a grinder, so I always get whole beans to keep it fresher longer. But let's say you have a French press, so they can do the French press coarseness. French press coarseness. So they, if you have a one with just a filter, they'll do it nice and fine for you. I mean, they have, I mean, just how thoughtful is that? So anyway, check them out. I'm out. Peace. Keeping it in the whole episode. Keeping it in. All right, I already hit it. Why isn't